Up next on Nebraska Stories, we head outside to explore Nebraska's beauty from the sky. Mountain biking without mountains, the storied Platte River, and an effort to grow an extra row for those in need.
A British aerial photography team, Skyworks, joined an NET crew, traveling across the state filming Nebraska's landmarks and hidden places from above.
I think the history is fascinating. You Americans often say, yeah, but we don't have any history. You know, you've got all the history in Europe and Castle, but your history is just different. It's still, I think, riveting because it's such a young country.
We don't know Nebraska at all, so it's a wonderful experience just to see it for the first time ourselves.
I've been doing this for a while, so I know what Richard's looking for, the director, and while he might be working on one shot, I'm looking at setting up the next shot. It helps him, creatively, and just expedites the whole thing.
This is something we've just started doing and it's quite new. It's editing together a little highlights reel. So what I'm doing right now is ingesting some of the footage into Final Cut on my laptop so that later on tonight we can put together a few minutes of footage to show everyone involved what we've been up to today.
Simon and I have worked together for 5 or 6 years over these projects, all the stuff in America. So he knows the sort of shots I like to do. So while I'm taking one shot, he'll be thinking about, having a reveal from behind a tree or doing something. And also, I've worked with Ben for a number of years. They'll spot things. So, suddenly we're flying along and I'm looking at landscape there, and they'll suddenly see combine harvesting going on there. And you make a decision, should we go and cover it, is the weather good? And then we'll go down and do it. So you just save a huge amount of time, and often you don't have to communicate, which is quite good in some ways. But yeah, so working as a team is really important. I don't quite know what it is. There's a freedom. You're just 3 people in a vehicle in that sense, left in your own to try and explore and do something. I'm just endlessly fascinated with the view from the air. For me, it's just that view of seeing the world from a different angle. People go on an airline, what is the first thing they do? Because they want to check in early, they want a window seat. Why do they want a window seat? They want to see the world from an angle that they don't normally see. What we do is bring that view to their armchair in their house. It's as simple as that.
I got my first mountain bike in 1983. This place, I didn't discover this until early 90s. It's really unique. It's got a little of everything. Some rocks, it's got a few jumps. And it's true single track. It's an 18-inch wide ribbon of trail, no wider. Out here, you gotta be focused on riding when it's that narrow. That's part of the fun of riding. It clears your mind. You're focused on what you're doing. Or you crash, yeah. Or you get to see the trees.
Paul Sonksen likes to test his limits on the dirt.
That's partially why we do it. We like the adrenaline of pushing it a little bit. I know every route, every rock, you know, but that's what's unique about this place. I don't get bored. I ride it probably 3 times a week, 175 days a year.
Okay, mountain biking in Nebraska might sound like an oxymoron.
When I'm traveling and mountain biking, they ask me where I'm from. I say Nebraska, and that's first thing they say, there's mountains there? And I'm like, well, they're big hills. But when they actually come here, somebody that's from out of town, they're kind of shocked that we have some good riding around here, technical riding. This is a lot tighter single track than, say, Colorado or Utah, where that's almost 3 feet wide. So it kind of keeps them on their toes. They're not used to the trail being that tight and the trees being that close to you. It's an equalizer. We call it mountain biking because that's the type of bike we're using. A road bike has the skinny, slick tires. Here you need some knobbies to actually grip the dirt.
At Platte River State Park, even advanced riders struggle with the rock garden.
Oh! All right.
Dang it, I was gonna
I said third time's the charm. Well, it's funny we're sitting here in the rock garden because earlier this year I actually wasn't paying attention close enough and I toppled over that root that's coming out of the tree right there, and I caught myself before I tumbled down that little ravine over there. Every single time I'm out here it's really the peace of mind that I get from being out in nature. I really enjoy pushing my limits, and this is one of the most technical and steep trails that we have.
Woo! That's tight. I bet 80% of the racers will walk this. Makes a difference between a real good rider and a beginner, because they freak out. You can just see it when they come riding up. And they're just like, oh boy, here we go. I'm getting off the bike. So we always say wear comfortable shoes.
Doing a line that I've never done before. You know, coming slow speed down here trying to figure it out, and you turn your tire the wrong way and you end up you know, falling over. It's just part of riding. There's, you know, there's two different kind of wrecks really. There's the high-speed ones, and then there's the ones that usually happen in a spot like this, where you're just rolling slowly over a rock and too late to do anything.
That should work.
Yeah, I've ridden this, I'd say 1,000 times in my life, and I still wreck on it. Yeah, it never stops.
Nice, there you go. It's not if, it's when. All of us have crashed. Every one of us, there's nobody that goes, oh, I've never crashed. Well, they haven't really ridden as hard as they could.
It is as dangerous as you make it. It's just all riding within your skill level is the most important thing.
And the trails change with the seasons.
This time of the year with the acorns down, it's dangerous for a while. It's like riding on marbles. And then you get into the fall with the leaves, they get slick and a little bit of moisture. They're like butter. As you're coming around the corner and there's a pile of acorns or a pile of leaves, and not much you can do but hang on or bail off your bike.
And there are other favorite spots.
It's a pretty area to go down to that waterfall. It's only about 4 feet tall. But when it freezes, it's 50, 60 feet wide. So it's pretty cool. The gully, and that has what's called the tooth gap. It's a rock formation that looks like a broken tooth that we like to jump off of. Butch's jump, because Butch built the jump and then broke his arm after he jumped it. Probably my favorite one right now is the trail I built a couple years ago. We call it Sykes Slingshot. One section is almost like you shot out of a cannon down a ravine.
These riders want to grow the sport, and they welcome anyone to these trails.
It's a small community of mountain bikers in Nebraska. And some people don't even know these trails exist out here. I do a Wednesday night ride. Anybody can come out, beginner or whatnot, and we will stay with them while they ride. Everybody's pretty friendly. You know, if I've got a beginner out here or somebody that doesn't know the trail,
Nice.
all of us will show them around.
You got a little tail whip.
And thanks to a federal grant, the trails at the park are expanding for riders at all levels.
They want to appeal to the mountain biker that might be traveling through here. They hope to make Platte River like a destination stop in between Chicago and Denver.
You know, from the plans that I saw, I'm excited about the progressive features.
Yep.
You know, I'm putting stuff out here that people back in Omaha and surrounding areas don't see.
Right.
Roxanne Fagan is a racer who uses these trails to practice for competitions across the country.
So it's called the tooth gap because somebody lost their tooth. I've been racing mountain bikes for maybe 15 years, but I've been in mountain biking for close to 20.
She's the women's national marathon champion in her age group and teaches new riders how to navigate the trails safely. She'd like to see more women try the sport.
I was absolutely intimidated, and it was scary, and I almost didn't continue with the sport. I kind of sucked at it, and I wasn't, very competitive. Finally got a bike that fit my riding style, and it turned everything around. We always tell people, walk what you can't ride, just, live to ride another day.
It'd be great if we'd see more women. There's not that many. It's a male-dominated sport, but that's why we do these group rides to get people out here.
For Fagan, it's been life-changing.
One of the reasons why I really like this sport, because it has a tendency to, I guess, bring out the badass in somebody. Like maybe they didn't know that they had in them in the first place. Bikes in general, I call them my magic carpets, because that's what they do. they take you places.
Today we struck out across the plains, and we're really sort of starting that long, slow glide downhill. I love the mountains, and I miss them already, but I'm in love with the plains.
Photographer Mike Forsberg and filmmaker Pete Stegen are in the midst of an adventure. They're following a mythical drop of water over 1,300 miles from its high mountain source in Wyoming through its journey down the Platte River until it joins the Missouri. It'll take almost 2 months, on bike, on foot, in a canoe. But why?
We are primarily made of water. All life on this planet depends on water. I want us to know where our water comes from.
They've traveled for 35 days, overcome every challenge, and at last they've made it to the Platte. A braided river meandering east through a state named for the river itself, Nebraska. Flatwater, a river full of surprises.
What's a new one?
Yep, it's gone.
What just happened, Pete?
Well, we're having a little quicksand issue. And we only got one crock.
So that's what we had to go over. Get around anyway, not go over. Go over and you're dead.
We can get around it one way and do maybe about a quarter mile, maybe even half-mile portage.
Light as a feather if you stick together.
It's like walking a dog. I need you.
Whoa! I got it. I got it. Pete's looking for a opening in the dense cattails so we can get around this thing, and I'm walking the boat slowly, hauling our gear.
Here's our path.
Should have brought the machete.
I don't see what the big deal is. I found a way.
Nice work, Pete.
You too.
And then, the biggest obstacle of all.
Eventually, we weren't in a river anymore, we were in a lake. The river becomes a lake, and things are going well, and the wind starts to pick up. So we got waves in our boat, we're going across these waves, so a little bounce in the bow.
They had entered 22-mile-long Lake McConaughey.
When we entered it from the river, you cannot even see close to the dam. Like, it's massive. Once these waves started happening, we started thinking maybe this isn't safe.
And then this gate
swings open and close like this.
Nate Nielsen, foreman of Kingsley Dam, portages Mike and Pete past Lake McConaughey, over the earthen dam, and sends them on their way.
It was a lot of work for those guys. They had a lot of fun, I think, but they were working hard.
There are surprises hidden beneath the water.
I picked it up, pulled it out, and like sand started pouring out of it. Looked at it and held it and thought, whoa, this is a bison horn. Like, when was the last time that bison have been around here? Before we started putting these bridges, before we started getting a handle on the wild was here. And it was everywhere. There's so much before me. There's been so much before I have stepped in this sand.
On day 55, the last full day of their journey, the river has one more surprise for them.
I had the tent set up and darkness had fallen and there was lightning flashing off in the distance.
It's almost like it was a show for us, you know, it was like building and growing and lightning.
That was probably the most intense storm that I've ever been in. The walls were sucking in and then blowing out and sucking in. It was crazy. We woke up the next morning and everything was glistening. The river had risen almost to flood stage, and the clear river with braided sandbars that we had been paddling through for several days prior all of a sudden was a chocolate milkshake with, you know, huge piles of foam and huge upwellings coming from below, you know, like just big belches of water coming up. And we sort of looked at each other and thought, well, we got like 14 miles to go and we can't stop now.
This is amazing to see this. Well, it seemed like the water was saying, you're done. Time's up. You followed me all the way to the mouth. Time to get out.
They have reached the place where the Platte River becomes the Missouri.
I think we're there. Nice work.
This river is me. This river is you. And if you live in this basin, it's you. It's you should care where your water comes from. I think it's so fundamental that we almost overlook it.
We have this tiny little wedge of water that we all need to survive. We all need to be able to share it. We all need to be able to understand it. That's a pretty powerful thing.
In a nutshell, what we do is we act as the bridge between producers like farmers, community gardens, even small gardens. We're their bridge to donation agencies such as the Food Bank, FoodNet, the Gathering Place, any type of a free distribution center for individuals experiencing hunger.
Connecting with Produce from the Heart really gives us a chance to provide resources and just make more connections with people. So we might know the food pantries, or we might know, say, the backyard farmer garden who needs to get their produce somewhere. They just don't know how to do it. And so that's how you bring in Produce from the Heart.
And what's really cool is that we can grow the produce, then NEP can come in and actually give really good recommendations on how to use that produce that we are growing. And having Produce from the Heart work with us and to pick up that produce and take it to where it's really needed has been a great benefit.
if anything, it's that perfect storm period right now for this type of an organization, that we have people who want to donate, we have people who want to help collect that produce, we have people who want to help deliver it to places in need, and unfortunately we have a lot of people who need it.
He is at a food bank each day helping distribute or bringing in produce. If he's not doing that, then he's probably on a weekend going to a farm, picking up all that extra produce and taking it where it needs to go.
Mike brings to the table the knowledge of that food pantry, which we never really actually had. So he knows who needs it, what they need, and it's much more beneficial for us to know that it's actually going to where it will be wanted.
Communicating to the farmers that you don't have to throw it away anymore. There is an organization that work with us will find a way to make sure that we can get it to someone who needs it.
Growing an extra row is always a good idea. If you have extra produce, and we all do, those of us who have gardens, so bringing that into the backyard farmer garden on Tuesday nights or Saturday mornings, so that can be taken to people who can eat it.
I think, Backyard Farmer is 65 years old this year, and it's kind of a great way to celebrate knowing that we're helping them. They're growing the best produce they possibly can. They're growing in abundance, and having NEP, SNAP-Ed, and Produce from the Heart, it does just completely align. I mean, they teach people how to take that produce that we are growing, how to use it, what great nutritional values that has, and then having Produce from the Heart being able to actually distribute that to the local areas has just, it's kind of the stars all aligned the right way.
That relationship that we have with clients and with recipients is really strong, and really, like I said, it keeps most of us going.
Watch more Nebraska Stories on our website, Facebook, and YouTube. Nebraska Stories is funded in part by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation.